Hey, it's Chris Lyle, the Executive Director of the Touring Career Workshop, here with another HR for Touring Professionals special episode. And today with us is always one of our fan favorites, our resident accountant, Joy Black. Joy, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Absolutely. So I know this is tax time. This is your crazy time of year, and I want to make the most of our time together. So I'm going to jump right into it. The past year has been tough for the world, but especially our industry. We were one of the first ones to shut down, and we'll be one of the last industries to return. And with that, a lot of people that work in live entertainment turned to stimulus payments, unemployment, PPP, et cetera, to get through the past year. So I want to talk a little bit today about how some of those resources might affect our 2020 tax filings. Let's jump in and talk about stimulus payments. Talk to us a little bit about, for someone that might have received a stimulus payment, how that affects their 2020 tax filing.
Well, there were two rounds of stimulus payments that have to be reported, and I cannot emphasize is a requirement that you must report the exact amounts of stimulus payments received between April of 2020 and February of 2021 on your tax return. It is not taxable income. However, your return cannot be fully processed by the IRS unless those dollar amounts match up to IRS records. It's important for two reasons. Number one, the matching. Number two, if your 2019 income was too high for you to receive stimulus payments, but because of all the mess that went on with COVID in 2020, your income dropped well below those limits, then you get the full stimulus payments retroactively through a tax refund. The other thing with stimulus payments is there's a third round currently going on. If your 2020 income is too high, but you qualified under 2019, hold off filing the 2020 return until you receive the stimulus payment based upon 2019 income. You are not going to get zinged by the IRS after the fact.
Gotcha. Okay, good to know. Good to know. So very important that we file those on time and in the correct fashion on those forms, like the correct amounts and the correct lines and stuff, right? I mean, you don't want to delay in your refund or even in your filing, correct?
Correct. The filing deadline is now May 17th. But you can wait if you will benefit by holding off on filing the 2020 return and let the IRS use your 2019 income to calculate your eligibility for round 3 of the stimulus payment.
Very good to know, and that's a great idea. Okay, let's talk a little bit about unemployment. So many people in our industry relied on unemployment to get through the past year. How does receiving unemployment affect your tax filings for 2020?
Normally, unemployment is fully taxable. However, with the legislation that was signed into law in the middle of March, possibly a portion of your unemployment benefits received in 2020 does not guaranteed for 2021 or future years, will not be taxable. Unless your total tax return income is less than $150,000, you are not eligible for a portion of your unemployment being non-taxable. That does not matter if you are a single filer, a head of household filer, or a married filing jointly filer. Total income must be less than 150 grand. If you meet the $150,000 threshold, then up to $1,200 per taxpayer, you and your spouse, if you're married filing jointly, is excludable. You still must report 100% of unemployment received and let the form determine the $10,200 that is excluded.
Gotcha. That makes total sense. Okay. Great point. Because again, I know so many people use that resource. So that's very important to note if you haven't done your 2020 taxes to really look at that as you're either your accountant's filling them out, make sure they're doing it correctly, or as you're doing it, pay attention to that line item specifically. So, Joy, another resource people use during this time for some people was the PPP loans. How does that affect our 2020 tax filings?
For federal income tax purposes, PPP loan funding is a moot point. It is not to be considered whatsoever by the laws that were passed in late December of 2020, early January 2021. However, if you have state income taxes, you have to be cognizant that the laws may be different for your state. If you do not receive full loan forgiveness for the PPP loan funding, in future years that you are making repayments, there's more likely going to be interest. So you need to be cognizant of whether or not that interest is possibly deductible, which is dependent upon how you got the PP loan funding, whether you're sole proprietor, a partnership, a corporation, an S corp. All that has to be taken into consideration. But by and large, for 2020, PPP loan funds received have no impact. It's not income. You don't have to reduce expenses. You operate as if you got a jackpot in your bank account, for lack of a better description.
Okay, it's very good to know because, yeah, I mean that's some tax savings. I mean it's kind of free money in a way, so that's good to know.
It's
So
free in a way, but that's from a tax standpoint. From an accounting standpoint, it might have to be handled completely differently. But right now, from taxes, you don't have to worry about PPP loan funding.
great news. Okay, talk to us for a second about the advanced premium tax credit and how that applies to our taxes.
Traditionally, if you have participated in what is commonly referred to as Obamacare, the American Health Place market health place, whatever the official name of it is, if your income is certain levels, you can receive a benefit from the government in that they pay a portion of your health insurance premium every month in advance. The catch is, once your tax return is filed, if you earned too much money, you have to repay what's known as the advanced premium tax credit. The last law that was part of the last law that was signed in mid-March said you do not have to, for 2020 only, you do not have to make those advanced premium tax credit repayments. Caution is the IRS is still in the middle of transitioning all the information specifically related to advanced premium tax credit to their computer system. So you may get some if you file even now, almost a month later. They're still working on it.
Gotcha. It's definitely a process, huh?
You definitely.
Okay. So to recap something you mentioned earlier, I just want to make sure because I know these dates and times have shifted, but our current deadline for 2020 tax filings is May 17th. Is that correct?
Yes, for individuals only. If you have
Okay.
a C corporation, you still have to file by. If you're a calendar year taxpayer, you still have to file by April 15th.
Gotcha. Okay, so for those that are watching that have not done your 2020 taxes, so you now know if you're an individual, like we said, you have a later deadline than what is traditional, the April 15th. But to really, reiterate what Joy said, to go back and even rewatch this video and pay attention because so many of us, in fact, I would venture to say almost everyone in live entertainment received some form of financial assistance in 2020. Make sure you are paying attention on your income tax filings to those numbers and where they go, because that will affect the timeliness of your filing and your financial picture of your refunds and when you might get them, if you get them, et cetera. So make sure you pay attention to that. Joy, yeah, and again, I know it's tax season and I know your time is very valuable right now. As always, so much appreciate you being here. You're such a great resource for us.
Thank you. One other thing, Chris, that we need to talk about real quick is, especially in Tennessee, if you received any of the grants from Tennessee Department of Revenue, those grants are taxable on your federal income tax return. And if you are an LLC or other entity in Tennessee required to file a franchise tax return, those grants are taxable on your franchise excise tax return. They are not taxable for business tax license purposes. but they are taxable to the federal government. State of Tennessee did send you a 1099 miscellaneous showing the grant you received. If you haven't received it, you need to find it because it has to be reported on your tax return.
Gotcha. Another fantastic point. And I know for the state of Tennessee, there were some grants that went around and even some local city grants. So definitely pay attention to any forms you might have received. And again, if you don't live in Tennessee and you used other resources in your state, you just need to check your state laws and see what forms might be coming to you from there. But anything else to add today, Joy?
That's all I can think of right now.
Again, thank you so much for your time. I mean, I know how busy you are. You're a great resource to our viewers, to TCW, and we really appreciate you helping everyone out, especially over this past crazy year. So thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, sir, for having me, and hopefully the roller coaster ride will come to an end very soon.
I hope so. Well, that wraps another episode of our TCW HR for Touring Professionals special edition with Joy Black. Again, we will be putting out more content in the future, so check back often. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share. We appreciate everyone's support, and we will see you all again very, very soon.